Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you all the books that I ended up reading in November, plus all the books that I hope to get to in December. So November was a bit of a kind of meh reading month. I had a 5-star read that I really enjoyed, and then the last book kind of put me in a reading slump. I was kind of disappointed by this one because I've heard so many great things about it, so I was very just disappointed with how it was written, and my expectations I think were a little too high, and I think the execution of it wasn't the best. So these are the kind of 2 books that I read in November, and then I'll kind of dive into my kind of December winter break TBR. So starting off with a 5-star read on a good note, I read The Black Wolf by Louise Penny. This is kind of the follow-up to The Grey Wolf, which was released last year. This is the newest installment in the Inspector Gamache series by Louise Penny, but because this one is essentially like a part 2 of the Grey Wolf, Black Wolf kind of duology, I would say. I don't want to go into too much detail about this one, but basically the premise of this series is that it follows Inspector Gamache, who's head of the homicide department in kind of Quebec, and a lot of his murders, in addition to the murders, they always involve this small town called Three Pines, and there is very much a sense of found family, which is really great. This series feels like home, even though it deals with dark subject matter. It was, there's always some really like warmth in this one. So I honestly thought this was an excellent conclusion to kind of this story arc. It was really exciting and different than what she's done in the past. And in the author's note here, she mentions how it's important for her writing this series to kind of step out of Three Pines. And this one, you do get a little bit more side character action in this one as opposed to the Grey Wolf, but this one definitely is much more kind of outside of, Montreal, I would say, and a lot more political leaning as well, which was really a lot of fun. This one, like I said, it was super suspenseful. It kept me on my toes and I just couldn't put it down. Like, I read through this pretty quickly, so I obviously really enjoyed it, and I thought it was a very good conclusion to this kind of story arc that we got in this one, and it had very important themes that are very relevant now. So I have in my notes here, they talk about the 51st state with, Canada and what was said with the US president, and also talks about the dangers of conspiracy and also the importance of media literacy. So there were a lot of very important themes that are very relevant to kind of where we are right now in the world. So I really enjoyed this. It was super suspenseful. It kept me on my toes, and I loved it. There hasn't been a Louise Penny book that I haven't enjoyed yet. Next, this book was the one that was so disappointing for me, and it was Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This one just really disappointed me. The premise just sounded super interesting, and it just really fell flat. So it follows this woman whose son has like tragically, mysteriously died several years ago, and her husband has passed away, so she is this like elderly widow who is working as a cleaning lady in the nights at the kind of aquarium at this town that she lives in, because her son supposedly passed away kind of on the ocean in that area, so she wants to feel a connection there. And one of the animals in the aquarium is a octopus named Marcellus, who you get chapters from his perspective, and he kind of knows something else that's going on as well. And we get another perspective of Cameron, who is trying to figure out who his mother was after he's left some of her belongings that somehow tie him to this town where the story takes place. And like I said, the premise of this sounds really interesting, and even just like right off the bat, the first chapter of Marcellus's perspective was really great, and then we just had a slow and steady decline once we got the introduction of Cameron's storyline. I really liked Tova, the older woman, in Marcellus's chapter. Those ones were ones that I really enjoyed. There was really, important themes of, grief and overcoming that, and, remembering people and the importance of all that stuff. So I did really like those chapters, but Cameron's chapters were the worst. He's basically the definition of a man-child. Very annoying, very irritating, like doesn't grow or evolve throughout the entire book, and just very immature and childish for someone who's like in his 30s, and I felt like a lot of the stuff was very like in your face, kind of some of the reveals and plot twists. Like I guessed it as soon as a character was introduced. I was like, okay, I know how this is gonna end. So that kind of didn't, you know, make it really exciting when I guessed what was gonna happen. So it was just very predictable and very obvious. So I was very disappointed. Like I said, I really loved Tova's and Marcellus's chapters. They were so fun and interesting, but I just couldn't get into it. And I felt like a lot of chapters focus on things that don't really go anywhere, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was just overall very disappointing. I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars, and honestly it put me in a reading slump. Like I didn't pick up another book for a good week and a half after finishing this one because it put me in such a big reading slump. So I think it just goes to show you that I was not the biggest fan of this one. Alright, so like I said, November was a bit of a dismal reading month, minus the high of Louise Penny, but she, like I said, never lets me down. So this one I'm hoping for December to read books that kind of, you know, really pique my interest, or ones that I'm excited about to hopefully kind of get me back into reading. And I think I need to read 6 more books in order to complete my 50 books reading goal for 2025. So I think it is doable. I just have to put my mind to it. I'm off for the last 2 weeks of December, which I'm very excited about. So I have some time dedicated to reading and being cozy and doing nothing, which very much is needed right now. But then also I'm going to be out of town for 2 weekends in December, and usually I don't read a lot during those times. So it is possible, but we shall see how this pans out. But yeah, let's move on to my December TBR. So this is a book I'm about 20% through right now, and I'm really enjoying it, and it is Hemlock and Silver by Kingfisher. This is kind of her loosely based Snow White retelling, but we follow this woman who is known for kind of poisons and antidotes and kind of apothecary stuff, or kind of preventing if someone is being poisoned, how to kind of, you know, figuring out antidotes. She's been really kind of fixated on finding antidotes to poison when she witnesses her cousin being poisoned when she was a lot younger. So she gets approached by the king to help figure out what is going on with his daughter, Snow, and it kind of goes off from there. I'm really liking this so far. Like I said, there's just something, I feel like I said, I've been in a reading slump, and this one has been really kind of engaging and fun, and really has kind of piqued my interest again with reading, because like I said, we were not doing so great in November after Remarkably Bright Creatures, which was disappointing. But this one is really, you know, a lot of fun. I find Kingfisher is really good at writing kind of not kind of snippy, but very fast-paced, fun dialogue between characters, and we're definitely getting this. And it's almost satirical kind of narration as well, where which makes it a lot more fun and engaging. So this one has been a lot of fun so far, and I think this is one that is hopefully will kind of get me out of my reading slump. Next, this is kind of the final book in this duology that I'm really excited to kind of dive into, that I want to get to this month, and it is The Fallen in the Kiss of Dusk by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book in the Shadowborn duet, but basically because this is the second book in a duology that is a spin-off from another one, I can't really explain too much about the plot of this one, but the first book in this kind of universe, we follow this human that is living in the kind of most powerful kingdom of vampires, and she goes and competes in this, you know, once in a lifetime kind of tournament, and if you win, you are given a wish by one of the main like goddesses of the world, and it kind of goes off from there. This follows one of the side characters from that first duology and all that. So the first book in this duology ended on such a big cliffhanger that I'm really excited to see what happens next. It's honestly just a lot of fun, and it's definitely one that has always intrigued me and really has captured my attention. So I'm really excited to kind of see how I feel about this one. Like I said, it ended on such a crazy cliffhanger that I honestly cannot wait to finally dive into this one. And I feel like kind of on a cold, wintry day, I think this is kind of the perfect book to dive into. Next, this is a book that has been on and off my TBR, I feel like, for the entire year, and because it is short too, it also helps me kind of get to that 50 book goal by the end of the year, and it is The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Morena-Garcia. I've heard really great things about this. It's like Bridgerton, Regency with magical realism is how I've been kind of told, but it says they are the beautiful ones, Louise's most notable societies, and this spring is Nia's chance to join the ranks courtesy of her well-connected cousin and his calculating wife. But the grand season has just begun, and already Nina's debut has gone disastrously awry. She has always struggled to control her telekinesis. Neighbors will call her the Witch of Old House, and the haphazard manifestation of her powers make her the subject of malicious gossip. When entertainer Hector arrives to town, Nina is dazzled. A telekinetic like her, he has traveled the world performing his talents for admiring audiences. He sees Nina not as a witch, but ripe with potential to master her power until his time to leave. Sorry, something fell off my bookshelf there. With Hector's help, Nina's talent blossomed, as does her love for him. But great romances are for fairy tales, and Hector is hiding a truth from Nina and himself that threatens to end their courtship before it truly begins. I've heard really great things about this one, so I'm really excited to dive in, and I've read a lot of her other books as well that I've enjoyed, so I'm really excited to see how I feel about this one. And this book is under 300 pages, so I think that will also make it a quick read, but I'm feeling like this might be an engaging one as well. So this is a short nonfiction book that I've had on my shelf, and it's actually one I bought when we were on our honeymoon in Ireland, and it is The Curious History of Irish Dogs by David Blake Knox. I'm a big dog person. I love dogs, and this one just really piqued my interest, and I was like, oh, when in Ireland, you know, you do what you do, but this one is just really interesting and it's cool. I have even like a little bookmark of where we went. It's really cool because they have an independent like bookstore at the bottom, but then also a restaurant attached to the top, and this is actually where we went for Valentine's Day, which was fun. So it's nice that I have a little like souvenir in here that I forgot about. But it says there are 9 breeds of dogs that are native to Ireland: 4 terriers, 3 gun dogs, and 2 hounds. Here are the stories of each of those breeds with their wonderfully Irish flavor. So this one just seems interesting. Like I said, I'm a big dog person, and this one just seems fun and unique. I've read a few like dog books kind of over the years, and I always seem to really enjoy this. So this one again will kind of just remind me of our honeymoon, and it's also very short as well. It's barely over 500 pages, so it's barely over 200 pages, so I think this one should also be a quick read and something a little bit different too, to kind of, you know, change it up from some of the, you know, fantasy books that I have on my TBR. And lastly, because I am not going anywhere for the last 2 weeks of the year and just having more time to read, I can dedicate to kind of books that are a little bit bigger, and I always like to bring a book to read during my lunch when I'm at work, but these ones are just a little too big to bring with me, so they are kind of ones that I want to get to when I'm going to mostly be at home. First up is the Downton Abbey, the grand finale, the official film companion. I'm a big Downton Abbey fan, and we're going to watch the kind of final movie with my husband and my parents sometime this month, and so this one will just be a good one to read. I know it's going to be spoilery, so I don't want to read this before I see the movies because I just want to dive in, but definitely once I finish watching that film with my parents, I will dive into this one. And lastly, this is one I'm really excited to go into, and it's something a little different for me, and it is The Look by Michelle Obama. This book is very, very heavy, and it's very exciting too because I was able to get a signed copy from Barnes & Noble. Honestly, this will be one of my most cherished possessions because I love Michelle Obama, but this book is too heavy. But it's basically talking about how no one knew who she was when Barack got into the presidency, and so how she kind of saw the way to introduce herself to, you know, America, to the world, was through her outfits and what she was wearing and how she presented herself. So this kind of goes into this is kind of what it describes. This book is a celebration of fashion, but more importantly, I hope it is a celebration of confidence, identity, and authenticity, and an inspiration to think deeply about how we choose to define style and beauty. So this one, I feel there's not a lot of writing. It's more pictures than anything else. So again, this is another one that I can, you know, whip out in a kind of afternoon and, you know, dive into. But yeah, this is just, like I said, I love Michelle Obama, so it's really cool to have something that's signed by her. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your kind of books read were in November and what books are on your December TBR. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.